My family owns a little vacation home in Colorado. My parents are avid skiers, which is what led them to buy the place. It's been in the family since before I was born, and it definitely shows its age. After all, it's over 40 years old, so it's not going to look brand new. Over the years, my dad has had to do a lot of maintenance just to keep it standing. The house is still in our family today, but it's really nearing the end of its life. My dad's even talked about tearing it down and building a new one. I don't really get involved in that decision. This story happened about 15 years ago when I was 8 and my brother Josh was 11. We were up in Colorado during a blizzard. The snowfall was crazy. Of course, Josh and I just had to go outside and play in it. The best part about that place as kids was the space. The property has a huge clearing surrounded by woods in every direction. There's a dead-end road that slopes downhill, leading to a few other big properties. It was perfect for hide-and-seek, snowball fights, and all kinds of games. Josh and I bundled up in our snow gear and went out to play our custom snowball fight game. We had our own rules. We'd each pick a fort anywhere on the property, but we had to tell each other where we chose. Then we'd make a giant snowball, our jewel, and hide it in the fort. The goal was to steal the other person's jewel and bring it back to your base. Josh picked his fort on the nearest neighboring property. It was almost always empty, like 9 times out of 10. So we'd use it to play. We'd build little snow walls for cover and hide the big snowball behind them. To get to each other's fort, we could either go through the woods or take the road up or down. Josh ran off down the road to his base. I was supposed to wait for him to blow the whistle to start the game. I waited and waited, at least 5 minutes. He already had his fort set up, so all he had to do was get there and blow the whistle. Around the 10-minute mark, I figured maybe I just couldn't hear it, so I started planning my route through the woods or down the road. I chose the road, honestly. Walking through the woods in a blizzard at 8 years old sounded terrifying, so I started trudging through the thick, unplowed snow. Snowflakes kept blowing in my face, but thanks to all the layers my mom made me wear, I wasn't cold. As I reached the driveway of the neighbor's property, I looked through the trees. I didn't see Josh. With all the trees bare in winter, it was easy to see through the woods, so I cut through to sneak in. But Josh was nowhere. I spotted his fort and looked around again, but still didn't see him. I walked over to grab the jewel, but just as I reached for it, I heard a woman's voice. "Excuse me, are you looking for your brother?" I turned toward the sound. It was an older woman standing at the front door of the neighbor's house. I called back, "We're just playing a game." She replied, "Your brother isn't here." I was confused. I slowly walked toward her. To my 8-year-old mind, she looked really old. As I got closer, I noticed someone looking at me through an upstairs window. At first, I thought it was Josh. The person had a black beanie covering half their face, and the lower half was hidden beneath the window frame. Then I saw another set of footprints leading to the front door. They looked like Josh's. The woman was smiling, really weirdly. I remember the feeling in my stomach, that cold, sinking dread. She waved for me to come inside, told me to get out of the cold. I stopped walking and screamed, "Josh!" But there was no reply. The woman's smile dropped. She clearly didn't expect me to do that. I looked down again. The footprints doubled back toward the woods. Then I heard heavy footsteps inside the house. coming down from upstairs. That was enough for me. I turned and ran. The woman shouted something, but I didn't catch it. I looked back once. Whoever was in that upstairs window was gone. I ran off the property, following my own footprints back. That's when I heard my dad's whistle from up the hill. The whistle he'd used to call us in for dinner. When I got back to our driveway, my dad and Josh were already there. They had just been on their way to come get me. Before I could say anything, Josh was already explaining what happened, how people in the neighbor's house were telling him to come inside. I told them the exact same thing happened to me. My dad grabbed a weapon and went down there while my mom kept us in the house. He came back a while later and told us the front door was locked and no one answered. He then went to another neighbor's house who knew the owners and called them. This is the part that still gives me chills. The owners said no one was supposed to be there that weekend. The cops were called. Josh and I had to describe the woman to one of the officers. After that, we weren't really involved anymore. According to my dad, the back door was unlocked and the police checked the whole house, but found nothing. After that incident, my parents took home any valuables they had there, afraid someone had broken in. We never played on that neighbor's property again. Just remembering it still creeps me out. Thank God we didn't go in that house. I've been skiing almost as long as I've been walking. My parents were competitive skiers. It's actually how they met. So teaching my siblings and me was a top priority growing up. Fast forward about 20 years, and here I am, 21, and in my senior year of college. This story took place a few winters ago. My friends and I, Jaden, Ryland, Amir, and me, planned a weekend ski trip up in Vermont. I can't remember the name of the mountain exactly. Jaden handled the bookings and Ryland drove, but it was massive. It had at least 7 lifts connecting different peaks. If I had to guess, we were probably at Killington. By day 2, we were familiar with our favorite runs, and we were ready to push ourselves. As tradition demanded, we brought along a few fireball shooters to keep things light and fun. It was one of those perfect trips, bombing down double black diamonds, racing each other, and soaking in every moment of adrenaline. With about an hour left before the lifts closed, we were catching our breath at the top of a run when 2 girls approached us. They weren't wearing helmets, which already made them stand out. But what really grabbed our attention was how incredibly beautiful they were. One blonde, one brunette. They looked like they belonged on a magazine cover, and they radiated this strange, magnetic energy. They introduced themselves as Taylor and Devin, and we started chatting. They mentioned how bored they were because most of the mountain crowd was older, something we'd commented on the day before. So it made sense they gravitated toward us. Devin seemed like an expert skier. She and Ryland got deep into gear, talk. He and Amir had their own high-end skis, while Jaden and I had rentals. Taylor noticed our shooters, and we joked that Fireball was our secret sauce for skiing like pros. She laughed, and then Devin pulled out her own unmarked bottle and teased us for sticking to something so mild. Naturally, we couldn't back down. We each took a swig, except Ryland, who went a little overboard. He always does. I made a mental note not to go too hard, because something about the whole thing was starting to feel off. These girls, how did they even notice us? Our faces were half covered, and we weren't exactly charming in our helmets and goggles. Still, things seemed to be going well. Amir was laying it on thick with Taylor, and she didn't seem to mind. Then, Devin brought up a trail none of us had heard of, Devil's Forest. She said it was a rarely open glade trail, one of those off-the-map runs through the trees. That alone piqued our interest. We love glades. We agreed to check it out, and they led us to a quieter part of the mountain. The snow was untouched. It felt remote. They asked us to take off our skis for a short uphill hike. Ryland and Amir eagerly followed them, and Jaden and I lagged behind a bit. I glanced at Jaden, and I could tell he was skeptical. He pointed out how strange it was that we had to walk uphill to access a trail. He wasn't wrong. That's not normal. But we figured, hey, we're 4 guys. What could go wrong? After the hike, the trail leveled out, and we all regrouped. The girls pointed to a narrow slope through the trees, saying it would lead us back toward the lifts. Right then, Devin pulled out the bottle again and insisted we finish it. Amir and Ryland were game, but when it got to Jaden, he passed, saying he was already drunk. For a split second, Devin's smile twisted into something cold, like a flash of anger, but it vanished instantly. Jaden reluctantly took a sip after some coaxing, and when the bottle got to me, I pretended to drink. I didn't trust this situation anymore. As I handed it back, I realized something else. I hadn't seen either girl drink once, not even a sip. I checked the time. Half an hour until the lifts closed. I tried to convince the group to skip the trail, that we wouldn't have time to get back. But the girls insisted it connected to the base, and we'd be fine. Then they took off, shouting over their shoulders, daring us to keep up. Ryland and Amir chased after them. Jaden and I reluctantly followed. The trail was steep and tight, typical of a glade, and by the time we reached the bottom, I was relieved to see everyone upright and laughing again. But something was off. There was no lift, just dense forest in every direction. I asked where the lift was. The girls smiled and said it was just a little further. Then it happened. Ryland collapsed. At first, the girls laughed and called him a lightweight, but I knew something was seriously wrong. Moments later, Amir dropped too. Panic set in. I unclipped my skis and ran to check on them. Both were breathing, but completely unresponsive. Jaden took a step toward the girls, demanding answers, and then he dropped too. I stood there in total shock. I knew I was next. The girls weren't smiling anymore. They just stared at me, waiting. I felt dizzy and collapsed into the snow, but I didn't pass out. I kept my eyes open. Eventually, I heard Taylor mutter to Devin, "He must not have had enough." Devin cursed. They both agreed they had to leave. Then I watched them unclip our skis, Ryland's and Amir's, and disappear into the woods. I couldn't move. Not yet. But after a few minutes, my body started to respond. I got up and followed their tracks as best I could. Eventually, I saw them in the distance, heading toward a road and a van. That's when things got real. 4 huge guys stepped out of the van. One of them spotted me and pointed. I didn't wait. I turned and stumbled back into the woods as fast as my legs would carry me. By some miracle, I found the others still where I'd left them. I focused on waking Jaden first. He'd had the least to drink. After snow to the face and some frantic shaking, he came to. We tried waking the others, but nothing worked. We waited. An hour passed before Ryland and Amir started to stir. We told them everything. none of us knew who those girls were, who the men were, or what they planned to do. We could only imagine. We reported everything to the ski patrol, to the local police. It even made the news briefly, but nothing ever came of it. No suspects, no follow-up, no answers. To this day, we have no idea what they gave us. Whatever it was, it worked terrifyingly fast and efficiently. A mix of drugs, we assume. Maybe it was just about the skis. Maybe not. But I know one thing. We got lucky. And that thought haunts me. This might sound a little strange, but bear with me. Every winter, my friends, Kyle, Ricky, and I have this weird little tradition. We walk out onto a frozen lake a few towns over. It's not some epic annual event or anything. We just do it for fun. There's something about the vibe of being out there on the ice, surrounded by silence, that feels almost otherworldly. Call us weird, but we love the serenity. If you've ever stood alone in nature with nothing but the sound of snowflakes falling around you, you'll get it. It feels like the world belongs to you for a moment. Plus, the photos always come out amazing, which is a huge win for a bunch of guys who like to be a little edgy. This happened just this past winter, about 4 months ago. It's April now as I'm writing this. And no, don't worry, no one fell through the ice. That's not what this story is about. It was snowing heavily that night, which was the main reason we decided to go. Temperatures had been consistently below freezing for weeks, so we figured the ice was solid. I've always been more of a winter guy than a summer one, and I know my friends would say the same. There's just something magical about snowfall. Even after dark, the world doesn't go pitch black. The snow reflects light, turning night into this eerie, dreamlike half-day. That night, the full moon made it even more surreal. Kyle was driving. His pickup handles snow really well, so Ricky and I just chilled while he took the wheel. We couldn't drive right up to the lake. Cluster of thin, scattered trees surrounded it, just thick enough to block vehicles. We parked in a nearby lot, bundled up, and started walking. It was freezing. Kyle and Ricky lit cigarettes as we walked, the smoke curling up and vanishing into the snow-filled sky. I think it was after midnight, though I can't say for sure. All I remember is how quiet it was. Not a single sound. No people, no animals, just us. When we got to the lake, we saw that it was totally frozen, just like we expected. We were joking around, laughing about something dumb, when Kyle picked up a rock and tossed it onto the ice. It didn't even crack. We took that as a green light and stepped out onto the lake. We didn't go too far, maybe 100 feet or so, but far enough to feel like we were really out there. That's when we saw something moving on the far side of the lake. We went dead silent. It was big, hunched over, and slowly making its way toward the lake from the tree line. We all just stared, trying to figure out what we were seeing. Ricky whispered, "Is that a bear?" I didn't answer. My heart was already pounding. If it was a bear, we didn't want to catch its attention, but something about the way it moved felt wrong. Too upright, too human, and there was something trailing behind it. When it straightened up, we finally saw the truth. It wasn't a bear at all. It was a person wearing a bear suit. Kyle muttered, "What the hell?" And I couldn't have agreed more. It sounds ridiculous now, maybe even funny, but in the moment, it was terrifying. Something about it just didn't feel right. The figure kept coming, dragging something behind him. The snow made it hard to see, but as he got closer, we could make out a rope, and attached to it, a small black bag. It looked like one of those smaller-sized garbage bags, if that's even a thing. We just stood there, frozen. I wanted to leave, but I couldn't move. Ricky and Kyle weren't moving either. Maybe they were just as stuck as I was. I needed to know what that person was doing. Then, the guy stepped out of the bear suit. That didn't help. If anything, seeing his real face made things worse. He wasn't big or intimidating, but something about him felt off. He crouched down and began slamming what looked like a rock into the ice over and over. He was trying to break through. Ricky tapped my shoulder, and when I turned, he and Kyle had already started backing away. I followed, trying not to make any noise, every footstep sounding louder than it should in the quiet. Then came the voice. "Hey!" I didn't look back. I just ran. I was praying he didn't have a gun or something worse. The cold hit me hard, and I was already breathless within seconds. I don't know if he chased us, maybe he didn't, but we didn't stop running until we reached the edge of the lake. We caught our breath and hurried back to the car. Kyle drove off without a word. On the ride home, we tried to make sense of it. Kyle said the guy was probably just dumping trash. I called BS. Who dresses up in a bear suit to dump trash in the middle of the night? Ricky said it had to be a body, but I told him the bag was too small for that. None of us had an answer. We still don't. But a few days ago, my mom was watching TV and an old missing child report came on. The kid vanished months ago from somewhere near that lake. The timeline lined up almost exactly with what we saw. I'm not jumping to conclusions, but I can't shake the feeling that what we saw that night wasn't just weird. It might have been something awful. By the time you're hearing this, we've probably reported it to the police.